So our speaker this week is Dear Noel, and he's going to talk about the spectral radius of graphs with no outer wheel.
Thank you everyone for coming. And thank you especially to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present. So I'll be presenting joint work with Sebi Choba and Michael Tate on some spectral Turan problems which we solved for odd wheels. Right. And before we get into it, I'll talk about Turan problems first. Right. So the central function in Turan problems is the Turan number. So given a graph F and a number n, we want to figure out the maximum number of edges we may have in any n-vertex graph, which does not see the subgraph F in it. Right? And we denote the extremal graphs, the set of extremal graphs, with this notation. Right. And so one easy example is in the case when F is a triangle, the extremal graphs look like complete balanced bipartite graphs. Right? You can see that this graph has no triangle by thinking of taking any 3 vertices, and at least 2 of them by the pigeonhole principle lie in the same part. Therefore, you can't have any triangles. Right? And you can also think of it in another way. So this is a bipartite graph. Therefore, every subgraph will have to be so any subgraph can't have 3 parts, can't be I can't have chromatic number 3. So the complete bipartite graphs give you a sort of lower bound for the extremal number in the case of triangles. Mantel's theorem says that this is the best you can do. Yeah. And it also says, it goes on further to say that if you have these many edges, then you must be the complete bipartite graph. No other graph would attain this. Yeah. So also, this also says, so we can rephrase this in saying that if you have one more edge than this number, then you'd have to see the triangle. Yeah. All right. So what do these graphs look like? Just to write it again, you have a balanced complete bipartite graph. Right? By balanced, I mean they're as equal as possible. So these are going to be close to n/2. I'll be omitting ceilings and functions when I draw stuff. Sorry, ceilings and flaws when I draw stuff. All right. Okay. So Mantel's theorem was generalized. One second. So my share has just stopped. Let me try again. Sorry about that. All right. Okay, so we may generalize Mantel's theorem to forbidding any complete graph. And this is the Turan's theorem. Extremal graphs look like the balanced R-partite graph. So you have R parts, which are completely connected to each other for forming a complete multipartite graph. And the parts are as close to each other in size as possible. So roughly speaking, they have size n/r. Right. Okay, and yeah, so these are just some other examples of these extremal graphs. The one on the left is for triangles, as we saw earlier, and the one on the right is for the complete graph on 4 vertices with respect to that. All right. Also, please feel free to ask questions, anyone, if you have them at any point. Right. Next, this is further generalized to any graph with chromatic number r+1. So the complete graph on r+1 vertices was had this chromatic number. Now we're going to generalize it to any graph. And so Edelstone says you have this many number of edges. So for the complete graph, we had the Turan graph. Right? Now, if you have R paths, if you have R paths, then it's not going to contain any R plus one, any graph with the chromatic number R plus one in it as a subgraph. So we can easily use this for a lower bound for the extremal number. And so the Turan graph has, roughly speaking, 1 minus 1 over R n squared by 2 times n squared by 2 many edges. Yeah. And so the Edwards-Stone theorem says we don't really add many more edges for any other R plus 1 chromatic graph. Okay. Any questions so far? All good. All right. All right. So that was the Turan problem. Now we're going to get into some spectral graph theory. In spectral graph theory, what we try and associate matrices to graphs, and then study the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of these matrices, and maybe these will give us information about the graphs, which we may not have been otherwise been able to study. So we're going to be associating in this talk to our graphs is going to be the adjacency matrix. So the adjacency matrix is basically if you have an n vertex graph, then you associate an n cross n matrix to it, and the if the I and j vertices are adjacent, then put a 1 in the aij entry of the matrix, or a 0 otherwise. So this matrix is symmetric, 0, 1, real. Therefore, it has real eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Moreover, you have an orthonormal basis of eigenvectors. So there's a bunch of nice linear algebra results which we can now use to study graph theory. Yeah. We since the eigenvalues are all real, we can order them this way: lambda n, lambda 1 being the biggest, and this is the one of primary interest to us, right? So lambda 1 is also called the spectral radius. And all right. So the spectral Turan problem, which was proposed by Nikiforov, is the following. It's similar to the Turan problem. We're given a graph F, which we want to forbid. And over all n vertex graphs, we want to maximize now the spectral radius, right? And these are special kinds of problems. The more general version of this kind of a problem was given by Bruardi and Solhead, where you are given a bag of graphs and you want to figure out which graph you're given a collection of graphs and you're asked which graph has the largest spectral radius in this collection of graphs. Yeah. So maybe your bag of graphs can be the set of all graphs on m edges, having m edges. Yeah. And so this would be related to Stanley's bound. Yeah. So you can have your favorite choice of collection of graphs. Graphs that I'm going to be thinking about is graphs on n vertices which don't have f as a subgraph. And we'll be looking for the graph with largest lambda 1, so spectral radius. Right, and just some notation. Extremal problem. For the edge extremal problem, we'll be using SPEX for spectral extremal. And the set of graphs which have this extremal spectral radius will be used, we'll use capital letters for that. All right, and sorry, my slides aren't sharing. Okay, here they come. All right. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to try to reshare my slides. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. I think everybody can see my slides now. Right. So examples of these extremal spectral extremal graphs are for the triangles. It happens to be the same, complete balanced bipartite graph, and so the Turan graphs are spectral extremal for the complete graphs. Just some examples over here. Okay. So why did we go into this different question about maximizing the spectral radius? And how is it going to help? So there's these. So what I want to bring our attention to is there's these two different problems which have a very similar form. In one place, we're maximizing the number of edges. In the other, we're maximizing the spectral radius. Are these two related in any way? Yeah. So it turns out they're quite related. We can, in fact, bound the spectral radius. We can give lower and upper bounds for it in terms of edges or degrees in some way. So yeah, just to give some intuition about maybe these problems might be related to each other. Maybe solving one problem can tell us something about solving the other. Yeah. All right. So we start off with like noticing that lambda 1 can be thought of as the optimization problem with respect to the Rayleigh quotient. Yeah. So lambda 1 turns out to be this thing, which you can see using your orthonormal basis of eigenvectors. Yeah, you can take any vector and expand it into this orthonormal basis of eigenvectors, and you can check why lambda 1 would be this thing, right? And so this is for all x not equal to 0. In particular, we can take x to be the all ones vector, and you end up seeing that lambda 1 is going to be greater than or equal to the average degree. Therefore. So we get some idea of the density of our graphs if we know how big lambda 1 is. So yeah, we can just reverse signs and see that if we have a bound on lambda 1, we can get a bound on the number of edges in our extremal graph. So if you give a bound on how big lambda 1 could be in any f forbidding graph, you would get a bound on how many edges you can have in an f forbidding graph. All right. All right. So why else use linear algebra? So the eigenvalue eigenvector equation for the adjacency matrix gives us a bunch of gives us a system of equations, right? So you expand over any row. So take this uth row and dot it with x. You get the scaled entry for the uth coordinate of x, right? So yeah, we have a bunch of equations, and maybe we can use this to get information about our graph, right? And so yeah, we can use this to write something like this. So if you're at the vertex, sorry, some internet issues. Okay. All right, great. That sorted itself out. All right, so say we're at the vertex u and we have eigenvector entry xu. What this is saying is that this is the scaled version of xu is equal to the eigenweight lying in the neighborhood of u. Or you can think of xu being a scaled average of the neighbors of u, if you wish, right? And so we can use this particular equation with respect to the eigenvector entry with maximum value. So the eigenvector with respect to lambda 1 is the Perron vector. so the Perron vector is such an eigenvector, and we can, so its entries are all positive. So we take the one which is the largest first of all, and you look at how big your neighborhood's eigenweight can be. So if we replace every entry in the neighborhood with the maximum, you'll get an upper bound in terms of the maximum. So it's delta times, so largest degree times this. So all right, this gives us an upper bound for lambda 1. Right. Okay. So now we know that the spectral radius is sandwiched in between the average degree and the largest degree of your graph. So if these two quantities, these two bounds are close to each other, something like a regular graph or close to a regular graph, then you have a lot of information about your spectral radius. Right. So if you get a bound on lambda 1, you might have a lot of information on a bound on the number of edges. But if these two are far apart, then you have less information. All right. Right. And so this is one reason why doing a spectral two-run problem might be beneficial. So Nikiforov showed that he was the one who proved that for forbidding complete graphs, the two-run graphs is the one which would have larger spectral radius. Right? And so if you upper bound the, so if we have an upper bound on how large our spectral radius can be, we get a upper bound on how many edges we could possibly have in G, right? And this in fact implies the two-runs theorem. You can in fact show that if you're not the two-run graph and you're forbidding G, then you must have less edges. Yeah. So this is stronger than the two-run theorem. Right. So I forgot to mention something. When we were talking about the Erdős-Schoen theorem, we had an asymptotic answer to how many edges we may have if we have a graph with some chromatic number. Now that theorem doesn't really help us if we're looking at bipartite graphs, right? So if your chromatic number were 2, then Erdős-Schoen theorem may not really tell you much. So yeah, there's a whole different area of these extremal problems if you just look at forbidding bipartite graphs. So we have the Zarenkovich problem for that, and there's some work done in answering it, the Kováry-Sós-Turan theorem. And so it turns out that Nikiforov also proved something for forbidding bipartite graphs, which sort of gives us an equivalent, equally strong theorem in the edge case. So it implies the strongest version of the Kováry-Sós-Turan theorem. I'm not going to talk about bipartite graphs here. All right. Right. So we saw how the eigenvector equation for just the adjacency matrix gives us information on the graph. Yeah, we get some bounds and all. So we can similarly use higher powers of the adjacency matrix, and we get so we end up getting new information maybe by looking at this eigenvector equation from the power of some adjacency matrix. And yeah, we might end up getting more theorems. So when k is equal to 2 especially, we end up getting some really good theorems from it. So there's Mantle's theorem, there's Stanley's bound, which relates the spectral radius and the number of edges, and there's Nossal's theorem for triangle free graphs, and there are others. So one such inequality which will be helpful for this talk in the future, so what would come up in later slides, is this bound. So we can lower bound the number of edges in terms of the spectral radius by lambda1 square minus 3t by lambda1, where t is the number of triangles. Right? So we can straight away see that this sort of implies no such theorem. If there are no triangles, then the number of edges is going to be at least lambda1 square, which is this thing over here. All right, and we'll later on want to like have large spectral radius, and we'll be showing these things because we're talking about the spectral two-run problem. So for example, say if lambda1 is at least n over 2, then we can get bounds on how many edges we may have in our graph using such an equation. Okay. And if we then argue that there are few triangles, okay, this is very good. We have close to n squared over 4 edges, which is great. All right, so just want to give a quick give an overview of what the sets of extremal graphs look like for different problems, for different graphs. Right? So for when we're forbidding a complete graphs, we saw that it's in both cases it's the two-run graph. With R parts, and so each has size roughly n over R. Okay. For when we're forbidding odd cycles, so forbidding triangles or forbidding a pentagon or something else like that, the extremal graphs look like balanced bipartite graphs. So for the edge case, and for the spectral radius question, it turns out it's the same. It's again the two graphs are the same. And yeah, so coincidentally, again, two-run graphs giving you that the extremal graphs are the same. So maybe these problems are related to each other. All right. Okay. Next, we're going to be looking at friendship graphs and what happens over here. So a friendship graph is just k triangles which intersect at one vertex. So you have k triangles intersecting at one vertex. This is the friendship graph, the kth friendship graph, Fk. Okay. So yeah, Eddowes-Stone theorem gives us asymptotics of what the extremal graphs, how many edges the extremal graphs are going to have if you have more than if your chromatic number is 3 or more. But it's also, it might be interesting to also find the exact value and the constructions of these extremal graphs. So for the friendship graphs, this is known to be this thing. So this n squared by 4 comes from having a complete bipartite graph as a subgraph, and k square and these things. So they're slightly different for the odd case and the even case. But yeah, but these basically come from embedding certain graphs into one of the parts, and so you add a few more edges into your graph. Yeah. So Choba, Feng, Tate, and Zhang showed that for the spectral question, it turns out that the spectral extremal graphs have these many edges as were there for the edge extremal. Right. So just going to go over it quickly again. So these graphs are, so we have containment of the spectral radius in the edge extremal case, and the graphs sort of look like you have a balanced complete bipartite graph, and okay, we'll do the odd k case. You have two cliques of size k over here in one of the parts. So you have at k square minus k more edges, right? Okay. Now sometimes we don't know what the extremal graphs are. So there are still problems where we don't know these extremal graphs, of course. Yeah. For the C4 graph, we know the extremal graphs for some n. Yeah, we get these from some projective planes, and they are closely, they're almost regular. So they have regularity close to n raised to 1 by 2. And the spectral radius is also close to n raised to 1 by 2. It's n raised to 1 by 2 plus some smaller order term. So far we saw that the families were sort of the same. So this is the first example when the families are going to be different. Right? So for the C4 case, I think, so Nikiforov proved not too long ago that the extremal graphs for the C4 case are going to be the friendship graphs. Yeah. And so we know we know the extremal graphs completely over here. Over here, we on the left, we know it for some n. And yeah. So the one on the right might be slightly difficult to prove if n is even, because we have this edge hanging out over here, but and that causes some difficulty, but yeah. So this is our first example where the extremal graphs look really different. Their spectral radiuses are quite close to each other though. So this is, as I said, close to n raised to 1 by 2. This is also close to n raised to 1 by 2, but the friendship graph does much better. Sorry, does a bit better. All right. And now coming to other larger even cycles. Okay, so now in this case, we know very little about the spectral extremals. The conjecture is that your extremal graphs sort of look like, oops, you have this k-1 clique over here, and you have, sorry, you have a clique on k-1 vertices over here, and you have, and the rest are independent vertices. Yeah, and you completely join these two, and there's one edge in amongst the isolated vertices. Yeah. Otherwise isolated. So it looks something like this, but this is a conjecture. This is still open. Yeah, so these are really far from being regular. You have all your edges concentrated on a small set of vertices. Yeah. And for the edge extremal case, there's we don't have a lot of information. We have ideas of how many, what the coefficients are going to be for the number of edges. So the conjecture is that I think that there's going to be so I think so this is the case, that there's these many edges, but we don't know what coefficients there are. So little is so we do have some information for C4, C6 and C10, but otherwise there's not much information. And constructions for these extremal graphs seem to come from generalized polygons and so on. So these graphs are going to be close to regular, but we might so we might see these as examples where if we end up proving this, that the extremal graphs are very different from each other. Right? And for forbidding complete bipartite graphs, there's not much which is known over here. There's some things which are known over here, but I haven't really studied this. But things seem to come from again algebra and stuff like that. So, all right. Okay, so just a summary of the results. We have the families being equal in some cases. We have containment over here. In all of these, we were seeing, if we looked, so the first two had Turan graphs appearing in them, right? The extremal graphs or Turan graphs. In this, if you squint your, or not squint, the reverse of squinting, if you spoil your eyesight a bit, you might see it as a Turan graph, complete bipartite graph. Right, and then we have cases where these aren't contained in each other. And yeah, we're wondering what happens for some other cases. Yeah. So in some of these problems, we know the spectral extremal, we don't know the edge extremal. In some, it's the other way around, and things are open. It would be interesting to know when answering one question would answer the other. Looking at these cases is if you have a Turan subgraph lying in there. Okay, can we give some nice results? Okay, so yeah, so this is sort of the overarching question. When are these graphs going to be the same? Can we have something, some intuition to these things? All right, and how can we figure out what the extremal graphs are going to be? Can we devise some methodology for the spectral extremal case, for the spectral extremal graphs? All right. Okay, so all right, so the spectral problem incentivizes that you concentrate your edges on a set of on a small set of vertices. It incentivizes larger degrees, some say. Yeah, but if you have large degrees, then you might end up getting F. So there's that trade-off and all. Right. Okay. So, all right. So if we just look at these as optimization problems, the edge extremal problem is just add an edge. Every edge is the same. Add any edge, avoid F. That's good. For the spectral extremal case, all right, every edge may not be the same. Yeah, it might be better to have some large eigenvector entries and others being small. So that sort of means like concentrating edges in a certain set of vertices. Yeah. But maybe if we're close to being regular, then the eigenvectors become close to each other, and it sort of ends up being a add more edges problem. All right. So there's this conjecture by Mike that if your extremal graphs, edge extremal graphs, look like the Turan graphs plus some constant number of edges added into it, then your spectral extremal is going to be edge extremal as well. And as some evidence for this, we're going to look at this case. We're going to look at this result. So when we're looking at forbidding color critical graphs, which are graphs where if you delete, there's some edge lying in the graph, which when you delete, your chromatic number reduces by 1. Yeah. So for example, this cycle, if you its chromatic number is the odd cycle's chromatic number is 3. If you delete an edge, it's going to be true colorable. Right? So there's an old theorem by Semenowitz which says that the extremal graphs for color critical forbidden graphs are Turan graphs. Yeah. And Nikiforov has shown a similar result holds for the spectral extremal. So this is the case when you're adding 0 edges. Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, and then so after this result, one can think of, okay, the forbidden complete graph case. So the complete graphs are color critical. So yeah, they had Turan extremal graphs being Turan graphs, and similarly for cycles. So okay, so now let's look at the wheel graph. So the wheel graph is basically you take a cycle on one less vertex, and so you would take it so if you have, where did I say this? Oops. Right. So you take a cycle on t-1 vertices and you join everything over here to another vertex, and this is your wheel graph, right? So if you're looking at a wheel on even number of vertices, these are phochromatic and critical. So the previous theorem takes care of it, right? So these graphs are going to have extremal graphs being the balanced complete tripartite graph. For other for odd wheels now, this doesn't hold. These are 3 chromatic, and you can check that you can check that deleting none of these edges is going to make them 2 chromatic. Yeah. Right. So the previous thing doesn't work. All right. There was a recent result about the edge extremal numbers for forbidding the wheel on 5 vertices. So this graph over here. And so the extremal graphs over here, what I want to draw what they look like. They again look like balanced complete bipartite graphs, but now we're going to be adding matching inside both of the paths. Yeah. All right, and these are okay. So the parts are really, I said they were balanced, but in some cases you can have the difference of the sizes being 2. Okay. For forbidding other larger wheels, your extremal graphs have a different structure. So they are still complete bipartite graphs, but now you're going to embed certain you're going to be embedding k-1 regular graphs into this. So we can't have any vertex with large degree, so we don't have any k1ks inside any of the parts. One can think of why this would cause there to be a wheel over here, and we can't have large paths, so we can't have path on 2k-1 vertices embedded over here, because again one can this might cause problems if you have larger paths. All right. Okay, so and the parts, so in the previous case for the 5 wheel, we saw the parts were really close to each other. For the larger wheel case, these parts are not exactly the same. They're close to being equal, but but you can do some calculus over this number over here, and you'll see that it's slightly off of being equal. Yeah. So again, your extremal graphs for, I think this was pretty clear for the W5 case, looks like take a roughly balanced complete bipartite graph and add matchings inside both paths. And in the other case, you're adding these k-1 regular graphs. So you can think of it, just for simplicity, you can think of adding just k cliques of size k into one of the paths. And sorry, I missed this out earlier. In the other part, you add just one edge. Yeah. All right. All right. So Zhao Wang and Lin very recently figured out answered the spectral Turan problem when you're forbidding all wheels with at least 4 vertices. So you don't want to see any odd wheel appearing as a subgraph. Yeah. And they said that it seems that it would be difficult to answer this question if you fixed the number of, if you fixed one particular odd wheel. So if you fixed L and you asked the same question, they said that it seemed that it would be difficult. And that's basically what we've done in our work. We showed that the spectral extremal graphs are edge extremal when we're forbidding the W5. And for large enough K, these two extremal graphs are disjoint from each other. So when K is equal to 3, we have containment. So the remaining cases basically. So for K equal to 3, we have containment. But for K equals to 4 and 5, we won't able to answer the question. So this is still open. We don't know what the spectral extremals are. And this is because one of our structure theorems didn't go through. Yeah. All right. So how can we prove results like this? Okay. So just developing some methodology, some method to answer questions like this. So say we have some, so now once we answered the question, you would have had G. You would know what the spectral extremal is, but maybe you can start with a close guess to it. And so some graph which is forbidding F, and you think it might be the extremal graph. And so it would give you a lower bound on what the spectral radius of your extremal graph would be. Once you have a lower bound on the spectral radius, it sort of constrains what your structure is going to be for that graph, right? You might so having a large spectral radius tells you that you may have at least this many edges, and so on and so forth. So it tells you something about the density of your graph. Then once you have some information about the structure of your graph, you can end up getting information about your eigenvector, about your leading eigenvector. And then once you get information about your leading eigenvector, you can go back and get a better or more precise approximation for your extremal graph. Yeah, and then again, this better approximation gives you better eigenvectors, and you sort of spiral into getting closer and closer to what the spectral extremal graph is going to be. And once you're close enough, and maybe your guess was good enough, you can just alter to that guess and say, okay, this, and then maybe you can just say that, okay, this is the spectral extremal, right? Okay, so we're sort of like spiraling closer and closer towards the spectral extremal. That's the method, and yeah, it's been adapted from this paper, which dealt with the friendship graphs. All right, so just to remind ourselves, the spectral extremal graphs. Okay, so yeah, the spectral extremal graphs were the same for the W5 case. So we want to show that there's this complete bipartite graph which appears, and there's a matching in each of the parts. All right, and for the other odd wheels, larger odd wheels, we ended up showing that the structures are very similar to the edge extremal, in fact. So, oops. Okay. So we ended up showing that for forbidding larger odd wheels, we have a complete bipartite graph, and there's these k-1 regular or nearly regular graphs embedded in one side and an edge in the other. But what we had, which causes the disjointness, is that these parts were really almost balanced. Yeah, so they had equal size. So in fact, we see a Turan graph lying beneath this. Yeah. So, all right, yeah. So the takeaway is that there's some complete bipartite, balanced bipartite graph lying beneath it. Okay, so how does our method work in the special case when F is an odd wheel, when we're forbidding odd wheels? All right, so these first three things are sort of going to talk about this part over here. So this is when you get if you have a large spectral radius, then you can say that there's going to be a bunch of edges, and that sort of constrains what your structure can look like. Yeah, since you're also forbidding F. And the things which come after that sort of this large spectral this large spectral radius is going to tell us that there's lots of edges, and that there's a large bipartite graph as a subgraph. Yeah. So something like, if you have bad side, it might look like a Turan graph is lying inside your spectral extremal. And then after that, you sort of once you end up showing that you have a bipartite graph, a complete balanced bipartite graph, which is a difficult task, then it just then after that you just have to show that okay, you can add maybe a few edges inside one of the parts and one edge inside the other, and so forth. You're just finessing your arguments. Yeah. So yeah, I sort of want to demonstrate these first three things because they might be useful in the cases in for other questions where you might have the spectral extremal being the edge extremal. So these steps might help in cases like those. All right. So how this works for the odd wheel is that okay, so it's very easy to bound our lower bound our spectral radius. We know that the complete balanced bipartite graph has spectral radius at least n/2. Yeah. So using the previous equation which we had, that the number of edges is bounded below by λ1 square minus 3t by λ1, we can just put in n/2 over here and we get this thing. We get this bound. All right. Then what we do is, so if we're able to show that the number of triangles is, so if you're able to show that there aren't many triangles, so then this would tell us that we have close to n square by 4 edges, right? Because then this term over here is this thing. Yeah. So we're close to having as many edges as possible. So also having few triangles is sort of like saying you're close to being bipartite, maybe. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we have lots of edges and we have few triangles. So we can use some nice lemmas, which will end up giving us a large maximum cut. There's some nice lemma synergy which happens if we use the triangle removal lemma and Furedi stability lemma. So the triangle removal lemma basically tells us that if our triangle density is low, then we can remove few edges and make the graph triangle free. Right? So in particular, our extremal graphs for the wheels are going to have very few triangles. You can see this because the neighborhood of any vertex cannot have this cycle inside it, the cycle on 2k vertices. And then we can use the even circuit theorem to say that there are few edges in the neighborhood of any vertex, and therefore there should be few triangles. Yeah. So we have few triangles, therefore we can remove few edges to make this triangle free. And Furedi stability lemma then tells us that if you have a graph which has a lot of edges and it is triangle free, then you can remove few more edges and you have a bipartite subgraph. Right? So triangle removal lemma, remove few edges, make it triangle free. Furedi's result, remove few more edges, you have a bipartite graph. So therefore we have a large maximum cut. Yeah. So just going over this quickly. Yeah. So we have a subgraph which is triangle free and close to n square by 4 many edges, and you have a bipartite subgraph of it which has close to n square by 4 many edges, which also tells us something about the sizes of the parts. They have to be close to n/2. Yeah, if you have to have so many edges in a bipartite subgraph, your path should be it gives you bounds on the size of your paths. All right, so so this is difficult to show, and there's a lot of the details of the work deal with showing this, but this is how we want to look at it. Maybe this is some intuition which we'd like to have. So if you're able to show that you have this complete bipartite graph, then maybe we want to show that every vertex over here for the W5 case cannot have degree 2. And in the larger odd wheel case, we won't have these subgraphs. Yeah, because then we'd end up with having the wheel maybe. But yeah, this is just some intuition we work with. We need to show this that this complete bipartite graph lying as a subgraph. But what we have is that there's this large max cut, right? So we have this large bipartite subgraph, a lot of edges. So maybe most vertices are adjacent to almost all the vertices in the other part. Yeah, and few edges in its own part. So if you have some vertex which is bad, so these are the kinds of bad vertices which we may have. Vertices which don't have many neighbors in the other part, and vertices which may have a lot of neighbors in its own part. So yeah, one can see that if you have a lot of neighbors in your own part, oops, then the common neighborhood of you and your neighborhood in your own part might induce a wheel. Yeah, so there's this ugly diagram I'm trying to draw, but what I mean to say is these vertices, since they have a large degree inside the other part, they would end up they would end up having a wheel as a subgraph. All right. So yeah, so there's this argument which you there's a stage by stage argument. You first show that most of our vertices are good. So there's few atypical vertices, and then we just keep strengthening our arguments using that back and forth argument about the eigenvectors and so on and so forth. And you can and then you can eventually show that you have no atypical vertices. Yeah. All right, and thereafter the proof is pretty straightforward. You end up showing that every vertex has almost the same degree. It has few edges in its own part, and it's almost fully adjacent to the other part. So, and the parts are roughly equal in size, so they have to be so the graph has to be close to regular. So this quadratic form which we had, which we were trying to maximize, sort of becomes like maximizing so xi and xj sort of, so your x sort of becomes close to being a constant eigenvector, sort of like in the regular case, and it ends up being a counting problem, edge counting problem. Yeah. But so yeah, so then you end up like trying to add more and more edges. And so if your extremal graph then finally had maximum number of edges possible, then it would have been extremal. And if it does not have as many edges, then it's not. Yeah. So it's not very clear yet, because even in the case where our extremal graphs were disjoint, where the families of extremal graphs were disjoint, our eigenvector becomes close to constant. So our extremal graph is close to regular, but we still don't have maximum number of edges. So it's interesting maybe to look at this case, look into this when things happen to be when the spectral extremal happens to be the edge extremal, and when it does not. All right, and so that's that. And some open problems are to handle the case where your k was 4 or 5, which is the W9 and WL wheel. And in all these in all the results regarding the odd wheels, your n was really large with respect to k. So it would be interesting to try and figure out how big n can be with respect to k. Yeah, and it's a very difficult task to try and figure out if your parities don't align up, so in some cases we aren't able to embed a k-1 regular graph into one of the parts. In that case, what graph should we be embedding? It's going to be nearly regular, but what should we embed? So that might be an interesting question, but very difficult. And then we can just ask other versions of what Tate had conjectured. So instead of, so if your edge extremal looks like a Turan graph, if is your spectral extremal the same? Is your spectral extremal also edge extremal in case you have Turan graph plus constant or linear or yeah, these many edges more added into it. Yeah. And finally, this is interesting. It would be nice to look at what happens if your extremal graph has R parts. I've only been looking at 2 parts, and so this is a difficult but interesting question because the following does not hold up. So this thing over here, if you have say even 3 parts, you might end up having a lot of triangles. And so this doesn't end up being tight, and we don't get that much information from this. So maybe we can generalize this to counting complete complete graphs on 4 vertices and then some bounds using that, using some other power of the adjacency matrix. Yeah, but yeah, and that's all. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Actually, could you put your last slide up again?
Yeah, sorry. Oops. Yes.
So, I mean, these are a lot of problems in various directions. Which do you think is most interesting or most tractable?
Oh, so I would want to look at, so I want to sort of look at the C8 case. Actually, what would happen if when you're forbidding the even cycle on 8 vertices, can we prove that the spectral extremal looks like what was conjectured? So you have one k-1 clique, and it is adjacent to this independent set with one edge in it. So it would be interesting if we could use our we could use what methods we had to find the spectral extremal in that case. But yeah, and yeah, so another interesting thing would be like to generalize the friendship graph to larger intersecting cliques, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are there other questions?
I'm a little curious. Is it known how any of these extremal questions might change if you replace the adjacency matrix with something like the Laplacian matrix or some other matrix?
Yes, so I think there are some results. Even about wheels, I think people have looked at the signless Laplacian and things. So yeah, I think there's some work going on for other matrices.